President William Ruto just off to the US, where he is expected to meet leading Silicon Valley tech bosses and also attend the UN General Assembly next week.
The death toll from devastating floods in Libya crosses 6,000 and is expected to rise as operations continue to recover bodies, with thousands of people still reported missing.
And across the borders, Emma Coronel, the wife of jailed Mexican drug lord Joaquin Guzman, aka El Chapo, has been released from jail in the US after serving less than 3 years in jail on drug trafficking charges.
I'm sure for lovers of El Chapo and Narcos, the TV series, they definitely understand who Emma Coronel is.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Well, that's how we kick off this edition of Morning Cafe. Good morning. How hot is the coffee where you are? My name is Freddy Ndimuli.
And I'm yours truly, Stanley Nyerungete. I trust that your night was quite successful, and we kickstart this particular morning in a whole way. And
what do you mean successful night?
that really depends. I mean, you can have a successful night and sleep like a child for very many hours.
Okay.
Well, for us that left the office at 11 p.m. yesterday,
it was still a successful night.
It's tried to be.
Well, success can be
defined
in very different ways.
And around 8 a.m. we'll be having a whole conversation on matters drug use in the country. Remember that particular report by Nakada listing that alcohol is the most used and abused drug in Kenya. And actually, 1 in about 8 Kenyans are using drugs aged between 15 to 65 years. Well, we'll be having that particular conversation right here from around 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. So you can definitely chime in. That particular question that we had asked a day ago on matters, is Kenya losing the fight against drug abuse? That conversation goes on today just to get to know now from the experts and from the stakeholders who deal in matters, drug abuse. Are we losing the fight against drug abuse?
And just before that conversation, we'll be having our big discussion on Kenya Kwanza, the hits and misses. And this morning we'll be having in our panel Honorable Margaret Lagat, former Assistant Minister, Ambassador Esther Waringa, former presidential candidate, and Njuguna Mwangi, governance expert. Do stand by for that as from 6:30. But for now, let's have the top story. Treasury is calling on Kenyans to submit recommendations on a fresh proposal to increase the value-added tax VAT on products and services to 18%, up from the current 16%. The proposal is contained in a draft medium-term debt strategy for the periods 2024-2025 and 2026-2027. Now, in the plan, Treasury argues that Kenya's VAT percentage of 16% is much lower in comparison to neighboring countries in the East African community. Other taxation areas targeted for increase include excise duty on spirits and other products with higher alcohol content to discourage consumption. Users of tobacco products will not be spared either, as the state seeks to harmonize the excise duty rate for the current categories of filtered cigarettes, non-filtered cigarettes, and other tobacco products. Sugar-based non-alcoholic beverages taxes will also be reviewed under the proposed tax regime as part of the government's mission to prevent obesity and diet-related non-communicable diseases.
educational services.
All right, and even as that particular matters, the looming taxes and quite interesting ones, actually coming from the whole matters of info truck and the whole poll that we were taking a look at yesterday, taking a look at 1 year later, the kind of comments that Kenyans were actually airing out, saying that 1 year later we are still seeing more taxes. And actually this morning we're asking the whole question, let me just...
Is the government...
Oh yeah, you do have it there.
Yes, I have the question. The question is the government justified in its latest proposal to introduce more taxes? Remember, the taxation measures will even go further to target farmers, landlords, car owners and small traders, including schools that have swimming pools.
Oh, yes.
So today we ask, is the government justified in its latest proposal to introduce more taxes? You can give us your feedback on X TV47 News and on Facebook TV47 Kenya. Will be sampling some of that as we continue with this broadcast. For now, let's get the day's diary.
Right, as we're getting the diary, I'm curious, by the way, the fact that swimming pool might be charged in this particular levies, you're speaking about not matters education, but then when you're bringing in matters CBC and you want to train them for the same swimming lessons.
They say swimming pools do not really qualify as education co-function.
Okay. Right, now to today's diary, what you actually expect to see today. Cabinet Secretary of Interior, that is Professor Kithure Kindiki, will be meeting and appearing before the Senate Cohesion Committee over the persistent border dispute between Meru and Tharaka Nithi border conflict that has seen hundreds of residents fleeing the border as tension remains high in that particular area, that is on matters security. And from that, from matters security, let's cross over now to the Maisha card. Before it was the Huduma number, now the Maisha number, and the civil society will today be discussing some key concerns relating to the plans by the Kenyan government to roll out a new digital ID system dubbed Maisha number by the 29th of September 2023. Definitely expect their sentiments by the civil society. From that, today is the final day of the International Telecommunications Week, began on the 12th of this month. Curtains coming down for the same today. We're taking a look at how that will be shaping up, as today marks the last day of that particular conference happening here in Nairobi. From matters telecommunications to matters food, and today you do expect the 3rd Regional Food and Hospitality Expo Conference. The Hospitality Conference will be providing an ample opportunity for hospitality professionals to discuss on matters hospitality and tourism, also matters information on the latest developments and technology in tourism and hospitality industry around the world, and many more. From that, now into what might be happening today in matters politics, just updating that particular diary. Azimio leader Raila Odinga is expected to be having a major announcement today. We'll be following up on that probably at the Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka basically house, the SKM. Following up on that, he was expected to, and he has been expected to make a major announcement on the same, on the ongoing bipartisan talks. And from that also, President William Ruto is in the United States, and we do expect to see even him attending later in the week the 77th United Nations Governmental Assembly, that is UNGA. Meeting basically. That is on the diary. We'll be updating it as we definitely go on. I definitely expect from around 9 a.m. for more updates on this particular diary, and even in the county diary and also in the international diary. Today, Fred, the papers quite contrasting. The Standard goes with matters politics, and the Daily Nation paints a particular photo here. I'm curious whether they got those shoes of, if you've never really worn shoes until they became like that, you have not walked E-Town.
And yes, let's start off with the Daily Nation this morning. On the Daily Nation, the big headline, more pain as Treasury proposes new higher taxes, and that mirrors our top story. 18% proposed new VAT if Kenya adopts East African rate. 650 billion shillings, the additional amount the Treasury is seeking to net annually in new tax plans in 3 years. 30% is what landlords will have to pay as tax on rental income at corporate tax rate after 27 billion shillings revenue target missed last year, and 5% the tax farmers who supply milk, eggs and other produce to cooperatives will pay on value of produce. So brace yourself for tougher times as President William Ruto's administration plans yet another round of additional taxes targeting farmers, landlords, car owners, small traders and even schools with swimming pools. The new proposals also seek changes to VAT, which may go up, and a review of excess duty on fuel products, which will send ripples across the economy, hitting hard millions of Kenyans struggling under the current high cost of living. The full story is on page 7, but I like the representation of this pain that they're talking about with some very rundown shoes that have seen better days.
Oh, yes.
Uliza kiatu.
Literally.
Uliza kiatu.
Uliza kiatu.
Uliza kiatu. I think I have a better voice.
I think I'm one of those people. I can't sing to save my life here.
Well, at least I can try. Other stories making it to the front page of the Daily Nation. And remember, of course, the front page of the Daily Nation, the big story, mirrors our top story, and hence our quick question this morning: is the government justified in its latest proposal to introduce more taxes? Other stories making it to the front page of the Daily Nation today. On the top strip, a fuel shortage looms as dealers cry foul over stabilization debt. Independent oil dealers have warned of shortages at their pumps next week due to the 1.8 billion shilling debt they have accumulated due to the government's price stabilization program. Because of the debt, the large oil marketing companies are reluctant to sell to independent dealers at subsidized prices. The story is on page 8, and he talks of a looming crisis there. Another story, Ruto at 1, a focus on women education, why president has failed to deliver for women and his high scores in education. The story is on page 4, and it's the main discussion this week after yesterday's date, which was exactly 1 year since President William Ruto took oath of office. The highlights on the front page, and this is on the right-hand side of the front page of the Daily Nation. State opposes lower interest rate, extended grace period for HELB loans. The government is opposed to amendments to the Higher Education Loans Board Act that seeks to reduce the interest rate charged on student loans and also extend the grace period before the loans mature. Appearing before the National Assembly Education Committee yesterday, the Principal Secretary for Higher Education and Research, Beatrice Nyangala, said such changes would affect HELB's loan collection and threaten its sustainability. The story is on the back page. Before we get there, other highlights, quick highlights on the front page. Murder, police hold 2 women over hairdresser's death. And Lokasa Yambongo, yet to be buried 6 months later. The legendary Congolese guitarist is yet to be buried. He died at the age of 80. Yeah, that story on the back page of the Daily Nation is also an interesting one. A proposal to reduce the interest charged on student loans under HELB has been opposed by the government. And an MP had proposed to reduce the interest rate and increase the grace period. So that is what the Daily Nation has for us as a big stories this Thursday.
All right, and the Standard this morning, MPs dare Raila with fresh visit to State House. That is what the Standard goes with. And it says some lunch talks. President Ruto and Azimio leader Raila Odinga renewed their political rivalry after the head of state hosted renegade ODM MPs for lunch. On a day the opposition accused the National Assembly Speaker of bias for defending the rebels. That is on page 5. So, according to an insider there, MPs told the president they had resolved to work with him, come what may, and vowed to step stay put, noting that their political future is bigger than their current tribulations in ODM. On the right side, still on matters politics here, Azimio's onslaught against Finance Act. On page 3, you'll see opposition leader Raila Odinga leads a team of lawyers, civil society and activists to reject the Finance Act 2023 and pleads with judges not to be intimidated as the government responds. So it breaks down Raila's and petitioner's case and also the government arguments. And just briefly, Housing Levy contravenes Employment Act, which sets the amount to be deducted from employees. That is on the Raila's and petitioner's case, while the government argues that this is a political contest that should not be determined by the courts. And while Raila's case says insurance compensation cannot be taxed since it is not payment for goods or services, the government argues that bill was subjected to public participation and all views taken into account. Raila argues that the Finance Act was passed without involving the Senate, while the government says the two speakers were in concurrence that the bill did not concern the counties. Meanwhile, no public participation and views presented to National Assembly were disregarded, according to Raila and the petitioners. The government says that it has a legitimate mandate to impose taxes to implement its projects. And finally, while Raila argues that Parliament sneaked in 22 new provisions, not in original draft, the government argues citizens' rights are not absolute. They can be curtailed through appropriate actions. And on the bottom strip there, they also focus on matters, the more tax payers treasury plans for 2024. One that is on page 2. And it matters crime here. Mystery of varsity student who died in hospital on page 13. And it matters sports, World Champs line up for Riyadh Road races. On the top strip of the Standard this morning in right here in Kenya, actually, how El Nino storm threatens already bruised economy on page 4. And Republicans target Biden, that is on the world page 22, what is happening in the United States. And also in matters sports, Stars World Cup qualifiers headache, more on page 39. I'm yet to listen to whether what Firat was saying, but he really seemed, quite anxious and quite as if he was really mad about something, the whole loss against South Sudan. We're actually saying that he hasn't been paid for months now.
Same old story, same old story. I'm sure such a headline has been written elsewhere for decades in Kenya. After every 5 years, a new coach comes in. Even Reinhard Fabish was complaining about the same thing.
Yeah. And Fred was saying Nikubaya.
Nikubaya.
And who else is saying Nikubaya?
Taifa Leo.
Yeah, yes.
Ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti la Taifa Leo, habari kubwa pale Nikubaya. Wakenya kulazimika kukaza mishipi zaidi huku serikali ikipanga kuwasukumia ushuru mpya. Wakenya watalazimika kukaza mshipi yao hata zaidi huku serikali ikitarajiwa kuanzisha aina mpya za ushuru na kuongeza idadi ya wanaotozwa kwa wakati huu, ikilenga kukusanya angalau bilioni 650 kutoka sekta tofauti za uchumi. Na wale ambao wataathirika zaidi ni wafanyakazi wa bodaboda, wahubiri, wafanyakazi wa teksi, wachuuzi, wafanyakazi na masuala ya mafuta na pia VAT. Serikali kuu na za counties za fyonza wa Kenya upya. Nikubaya, Taifa Leo yasema. Habari zingine ambazo zimepewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo hii Alhamisi: Ruto aagiza mabadiliko makubwa UDA. Rais aliagiza ukaguzi kuhusu michango ambayo wanachama wamekuwa wakitoa kwa chama. Habari zingine: msanii Lokasa ya Mbongo akaa mochari kwa miezi 6. Mambo ya DRC, Lokasa ya Mbongo, wenye wapenzi wa muziki ya kitambo wanamjua yule jamaa. Kwingineko, waliokufa Libya kwa mafuriko sasa ni 5,000, lakini ukiangalia takwimu za kwingine ni 6,000 na zaidi. Pale juu kwenye kurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, Omtata akosoa sheria ya fedha, seneta aambia koti raia hawakuhusishwa inavyohitajika kikatiba. Na kwenye spoti, Southgate amtetea mwanasoka Maguire. Kocha wa timu ya Uingereza atetea mlinzi Maguire dhidi ya mashabiki waliomfokea. Habari yenyewe kwa kwenye ukurasa wa 20 wa Taifa Leo, lakini habari kubwa ni kubaya.
All right, Nikubai. Also, Daily Nation puts it Nikubai in its own business terminologies, and Business Daily says new payslip paying for workers as Treasury plans tax relief acts. And in a brief there, 2,400 Kenyan shillings monthly personal relief among those targeted, and a new tax band lineup to caution low-income earners. And it goes on to say distribution of wage employment by monthly income gives you that particular graph there. Other stories making it to the Business Daily. Oil dollar swap deals pile pressure on shilling. And on the ticker on the right side of Business Daily, Centum latest firm to report zero gender pay gap. And manufacturers sue seeking to block 17.5% export levy. And finally there, Kenya outshines her neighbors in PE and venture in capital deals. PE is basically private equity for the views. That is on the Business Daily this morning.
Wow. This one, I'm just waiting to see the kind of effect all these tax measures will have. More tax pain lies ahead for Kenyans. That's a big headline on the People Daily this morning. More tax pain lies ahead for Kenyans. Raising revenue, VAT on education and insurance services, excess duty on coal and motor vehicle circulation tax are some of the new taxes households will contend with from next year if the proposals are ratified. The story is on page 4. Some of the proposed tax changes on education, targeted services not directly related to education such as swimming, taekwondo, skating and chess. On insurance services, all insurance agents, brokers and security brokers to pay the tax. On excise duty on coal, usage of coal as energy will be subjected to excise duty. A category for coal is yet to be established to determine the applicable rate. And on carbon tax, tractors, vehicles, forklifts, excavators and earth movers using fossil fuel to pay the tax, gradual increase of rate over the years. Interesting. Other stories on the front page. Defiant ODM lawmakers meet President Ruto. That story is on page 6. And on the top strip, Finance Act case finally kicks off in court. Busia senator wants a 3-judge bench to declare the 2023 tax law null and void. Says it is unconstitutional due to lack of public participation. And yes, more tax pain lies ahead for Kenyans. That's a big story on the People Daily today.
All right. I also do have...
The Star?
I do have the Star here. I'm trying to just zoom it in and have it correctly. So the Star goes with the same matters there, matters cost of living, and also that particular story, President William Ruto meeting the ODM MPs. Cost of goods to go up, state plans to raise VAT. So Treasury has proposed a 2% increase in VAT, introduction of 6 education taxes on there, and also DM rebels defy Raila gain, meet Ruto at State House. That is on the Star this morning. On the bottom strip, a story that most dailies have actually steered away from, and we'll be listening into some sound bites of Kaluma later on around 9 a.m. LGBTQ+, the law change rattle. So Supreme Court accused of going against will of God and Kenyans. And away from that, opponents of the death penalty now want life imprisonment scrapped. On the top strip of the Star, matters politics here, the big strategy. Ruto wants radical UDA changes, plans grassroots party, polls countrywide. More page 4 and 5. That is on the Star this morning.
Okay, let's cross the border to Uganda and see what's headlining there. On the Daily Monitor this morning, police stop Birigwa meeting, Bobby tours. Police say if the delegates meeting convened by FDC National Chairperson Waswa Birigwa is allowed to proceed, it could result in violence. The other big story on the front page of the Daily Monitor in Uganda today makes reference to I think one of the kingdoms there. Chabazinga Nadiope VI marks 9 years on the throne. They're calling it that an achievement. That is a big, those are the big stories on the front page of the Daily Monitor, and this is what people are talking about in Kampala, Uganda.
Oh, yes. Let's see what people are talking about in Tanzania, in the Citizen. And the Citizen this morning, the Citizen and the Mwananchi, if you
they're sister papers, so I guess they just go with the same stories.
Most of them. And it's interesting today that Samia Suluhu is not featuring in any of them. I mean, she's always featuring in most of the days we are reviewing this. The Citizen, Chadema defends boycott move amid rising pressure. So opinions are divided on whether the decision by the country's main opposition political party to boycott national dialogues on the state of democracy is self-defeating. They have a number of quotes there. Another story making it to the Citizen, MCL and MB launch Rising Woman Online. And in case you're wondering which some of these acronyms are, Mwananchi Communications Limited, that is MCL, partnering with NMB Bank to launch that particular Woman Online. Bottom scroll there, Africa's Free Trade Pact to lift 20 million out of poverty. That is on the Citizen this morning.
Katika gazeti la Mwananchi kule Tanzania, mkutano wa kidemokrasia, sababu za Chadema kususia zawa gumzo. Washiriki mkutano wa baraza la vyama vya siasa wadai kutoshiriki kwake kunawakwamisha juhudi za maridhiano. Yenyewe yajibu ikisema hizo ni giliba za kutaka waonekane hawana utayari wa maridhiano ya kitaifa. Yasema itaanika kila hatua iliyofikiwa katika majadiliano na serikali. Habari zingine kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi, jukwaa uwezeshaji wanawake kidijitali. Kwingineko, viongozi Afrika wanavyogawa nyadhifa za juu kwa watoto. And they make reference to what's happening in Zimbabwe with Emerson Mnangagwa appointing his son to the cabinet. Na hizo ndizo habari ambazo zimepewa kipaumbele kwenye gazeti la Mwananchi kule Tanzania asubuhi ya leo.
Na kutoka Tanzania pale tuelekee katika hapa nchini Kenya kiangazia masuala ya caricature. And on page 14 on the Standard, they go with what is happening on even the whole talks in the bipartisan talks, the furor of the IEBC reconstitution, having a robot there written the IEBC chair. It has no head, so you wouldn't really know who is the chair at the moment. Then they have the main server. This is one of the contentious servers that the opposition is really trying to have it opened. And on the hot seat there, there's no one sitting. The IEBC matters. On the Daily Nation, I'm seeing even smile at it.
The Daily Nation is a representation of what's happening in ODM. On one hand, ODM governors are allowed to visit.
That's on page 17 of the Daily Nation.
Yes, to visit State House, yet the MPs are not allowed the same freedom. And so the door, there's a locked door there with a very huge padlock, locking in the MPs from visiting State House. Yet the governors can be seen peeping through the window from inside State House. I guess that's the state of affairs in the Orange Democratic Party. Do we have it on? I could probably try and show you this. I hope it's clear enough.
Most definitely. And even as you also hold it, it's curious, the caricatures of leaders who are locked in and those who are out shows you, the close allies of Azimio leader Raila Odinga, and those who are out, probably those who are out, he's just let them go. And, well, those who are inside, is keeping them close, maybe.
That whole debate of the visits to State House, definitely one of the biggest talking points in matters politics.
On People Daily, before we...
Yes, it's only fair we take a look at the cartoon on the People Daily as well. And it's not showing. It's taking quite some time. I think I have to go slowly.
Matters technology.
I still can get...
We actually have it on the screens. Matters football. I believe that's the whole South Sudan, the Bright Stars and the Harambee Stars, as we were even saying yesterday. Harambee Stars walikosa nyota yao iliibiwa jana hiyo siku ya Jumatatu.
And that quote there, can you prove me wrong that a dog doesn't bark loud at home anymore? Well, it is painful to lose to South Sudan at home.
I remember even the comments, and people were like, they even stole our national flag and even put a star there just to look different from us. They're just
we are the ones who don't have the star. Yet our national team is Harambee Stars. They do have the star on their flag. Kweli hatuna nyota.
Waliiba nyota yetu hapo. But it's sad though. I mean, we need to see the next Friday and how Harambee Stars will be even performing.
Yes.
And if they're probably demoralized at this point, or they just move on. I mean, if they're going to be preparing for the World Cup qualifiers, World Cup is not an easy feat. It's one tricky, playing against other, not only even African countries, but even out there.
Well, whether or not we'll get to that level, we'll cross that bridge once we do get there. I have my own skepticism when it comes to how far Harambee Stars can go in its current form. Anyway, just a reminder of our panel after the break, Honorable Magirel Lagat, former Assistant Minister, Ambassador Esther Waringa, former presidential candidate, and Jugoda Mwangi, governance expert. As we continue looking at Kenya Kwanza hits and misses 1 year on, and the more pain ahead with those proposals to increase taxes. Remember our question this morning, is the government justified in its latest proposal to introduce more taxes? You can interact with us through our social media handles on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. You're watching Morning Cafe. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, good morning, viewers. We continue to congratulate TV47 for that competitive energy to be a reading media house. And then number 2, yes, I think we need a 6th president who is dynamic, focused, ready to deliver the Republic of Kenya and the people of Kenya from the dungeon that they are currently in, especially when we see the front page of the dailies, more pain. I think Mama wa Taifa administration is ready to be a mother to the nation to deliver Kenyans out of this pain that we have been inflicted.
Great. Ambassador Esther Waringa.
Yes.
There. And also in studio this morning, Honorable Magirel Langat, a political analyst and a former assistant minister. It's good to have you in studio. Karibu sana TV47.
Thank you, Fred. And to echo my colleague, Madam Future President, I want to congratulate TV47. Last time I was here, we were in some small place somewhere in Parklands,
yes.
And I'm really impressed by the scenery and the place that you're located in.
On behalf of TV47, I say thank you.
Yes, and more importantly, of course, the continuous sensitivity, towards bringing more discussions on the table for Kenyans to see. Yes, I'm also, surprised to see more pain. That's a very painful headline. And when you go into the details, maybe we'll need to get to know more. Where is this pain going to pinch and all that?
Yes.
But I think it's a big issue that is now going to be a big debate in the Kenyan platform. Yeah.
Yes, and that is where we kick off this discussion, more pain. It's been described as more pain, more tax pain. On the Daily Nation, more pain. On the Standard, more tax pain. On People Daily, more tax pain. So definitely more pain across board. The Daily Nation has been fair enough to actually mention on the front page some of the areas that will be affected. They're talking about additional taxes targeting farmers, landlords, car owners, small traders, even schools with swimming pools. Definitely, this means that each and every Kenyan who engages in any of these things, attending school, either a landlord, owning a car, is a small trader, or is a farmer, will be included in this. Now, this comes on the backdrop of a finance bill that was passed controversially. It's already been challenged in court. That case is continuing. And even before the dust settles, Esther, we see that the government is out ready with more tax proposals. Is it that the government is not in tune with the Kenyan society, or is it a case of pain now, relief later?
I must say this is what happens when we have a government that is not resonating with the situation on the ground, a government that is not listening to people, a government that never considered the proposals that were made during the finance bill process. I remember we had a sitting that several Kenyans and several civil, international and national civil society organizations prompted their proposals to the Finance Bill Committee, but no one listened to this. These are the fruits. And now we have a government that wants to do whatever it can do to probably give itself the comfort zone that it is looking for at the expense of, if I may call it, the hustler. The hustler, the Wanjiko, the Mama Mboga, the piki rider. These are the people that are being squeezed. You can imagine a swimming pool in a school being taxed. How far will this pain go? And I think that's why we have this show today, because Kenyans are like, are we gonna eat anymore? Are we gonna take our children to school anymore? What's really happening in the Republic of Kenya? And I must say that if a government fails to be a parent figure, if a government fails to listen to its, like, it's just like an example of a family where the parents, the mother and the father, do not listen even to the plight of their children. This is what happens. The family crumbles down, you know. Therefore, this is the real situation, and that's why the Constitution of Kenya 2010 has provided for public participation. When we don't employ the public participation proposals that were given during the finance bill, and the president listening to the cry of Kenyans, then we are going to fail. Definitely we are going to fail because something is very wrong. Because if you don't listen to the voters who prompted you to power, if you don't listen to Mama Mboga, the hustler nation that brought you into leadership, then high possibility you're going to cram down.
Honorable Magere Langat, the Treasury has already invited proposals or recommendations from members of the public on this matter. In fact, in its statement, that was the main intention, to invite proposals between now and 6th of October, specifically on these new proposals. Yet we know that even when the finance bill back then was being formulated, they still conducted public participation. People were called in and they gave a lot of the recommendations, but very little or none at all was actually taken into consideration. Do we really expect any public participation to be of any consequence in this, or as soon as Treasury proposes new taxation, then that's it? It will definitely be implemented.
Yeah, what gives me some sigh of relief is that it is a proposal. And when it is a proposal, it is something that is put on the table for Kenyans to discuss, which is basically what we are doing now. Like Esther has already given some insights to the way she views it, and definitely more Kenyans are going to be speaking onto it. I just want to say that it's good if we participate publicly, so that we can say now our issues were not taken up, or they were taken up. But basically, I pity, the government at this time, because every part of Kenya wants development, and that development needs money. There is nothing that can be done without, that money. If you notice that wherever the president goes, or the MPs, or even the opposition goes, they ask for more money, money, and more money. Now we want to create more counties, that is, more money. We want more roads, we want all those things. So I think what basically Treasury is trying to do is building up on the earlier public participation in terms of what the public required, and trying to put up the entire thing, and it's amounting to so much. What I can only say is that maybe at the end of the day we need to find a balance so that we can spread. We cannot, Rome was not built in a day. So we cannot do everything, say within the regime, the first regime of Kenya Kwanza. We can only do so much.
Okay.
But again, as a person who has been in government before, all I know is that very few people in Kenya have been paying taxes. Very few. You'll find that the taxes have been focused on only the employed and a few registered businesses. But whereas the rest of the Kenyans are just having a good time. So I think what this government is trying to do is to reach out to everybody and ensure that at least you are paying some tax. So in my view, the future will be relieved. That, like what you said, pay now, and future, there will be a relief. And it's not only happening in Kenya. Even if you read about the economies of some of the countries in Europe, France and wherever, at time the tax was so high, and when everybody was now within the web or within the scope of being taxed, then a lot of contributions were coming in. Okay. So then we begin to realize and to see the tax now going down, because the government is collecting more than what it requires. And I think that's basically the aim of this government. And remember, they are trying to move away from the internal borrowing. Not the internal borrowing, generally borrowing. The president has said many times that we don't want to borrow, because borrowing equals to digging more. Digging another hole to try and fill another hole. And you know what happens? When you dig a hole to fill another hole, you must dig, the hole that you're digging is deeper than the one which you're coming to fill. So I think Treasury is okay to propose this. Let Kenyans talk. And the issue of swimming pools in school, madam, I was privileged to be in one of those schools in high school which had a swimming pool, but it was 100% dedicated to the school. But you see, most of the schools, again, that we have nowadays, they lease out. So you'll find that a lot of schools, they charge other users to come and use the facility. Even they charge other schools. So I don't think it is really outrageous, but it's something that we need to look at what was the consideration behind. Okay. So that maybe this issue is agreed upon.
What do you feel about, even before we come to Ambassador Waringa, what do you feel about the proposal to increase the rate of VAT to 18%, up from 16%? Because one of the main concerns is that this will definitely impact on the cost of fuel, cost of electricity, and that could have a different kind of effect on the economy altogether.
It is true, it's gonna, push a little bit higher, but I think overall the government is looking at, am I going to get the money that I need to provide the services that the public requires? Because again, if you cannot provide and you are a government, then you have failed. So it's better you be bold like the way it is and say to the public that if you want all this, then we need to changa more, and the only way to do that is by trying to balance off these taxations. So definitely it's going to go up, but I think we need to consider other sources of energy, like we have been talking about. Just a few weeks ago we had the big summit here for climate change, and people talked about so much in terms of getting clean energy and all that. I even heard people talk about the rates going down in future so that people can even use electricity to cook. I can assure you no Kenyan uses electricity to cook. No Kenyan. The president had promised that the gas will go down. I believe that it has slightly gone down in the Mutungi, the gas, but not to the level.
Not the gas itself.
I think it's a gas.
It's a cylinder.
It's a cylinder that went down. Yeah. But at least it has relieved a bit in terms of the people want to go into that. So I believe that it's going to be a little bit painful. Yeah, but in the end, when all this is combined, the sum total, then definitely it's going to show that the government has collected more, and we'll begin to see a relief.
And probably then the question is, when we talk about more tax paying, it's paying for who? Because the president and the Kenya Kwanza administration in their manifesto when they were campaigning, they talked about increasing the tax base. Actually, just making sure that more people come into the tax-paying bracket. Correct. The people you're talking about here, landlords,
yes,
farmers, car owners, traders. Yes, some of them could also double up as those employed in the formal sector. But many of these people engaging in farming, renting businesses, even motor vehicle businesses as well, as people engaging in small trade, have not been included in the tax-paying bracket for quite a long time.
Correct.
So probably they are the ones who are going to feel this pain, but it is fresh pain for them.
It's fresh pain, yes.
Yes, not necessarily those who've been experiencing the pain up until now.
Yes. It is fresh pain. And for me, I think it is, we start from where I said before, that there are so many people who have not been paying taxes. So Kenya has relied on a few to carry the load. So you can imagine it will not be pain, so much pain longer, because now there are more people trying to carry the load. So I think we just need to give the government the correct advice in how to reach out to these people and ensure that the tax is discussed by the public. And that's why maybe the ministry is inviting the public to come and give comments. So at the end of the day, what we need to say is to, to implore on the ministry and government to ensure that they take into account those views by the public and see how they can balance it off so that they can be able to agree on whether these taxes are going to, to be implemented, or if they are going to be implemented, maybe not in the figures that they have already suggested. Okay.
And I think now I'm able to engage Ambassador Esther Waringa. According to the Honorable Magere Langat, taxation is not necessarily a bad thing, as long as you get value from it. We've seen in other jurisdictions where taxation levels are even 50%, but the public services are up to scratch on education matters, health, public transport. Probably when in this public participation that people have been invited to do, wouldn't it be meaningful that instead of criticizing and opposing the new taxation measures. Instead, we should be calling for stringent ways of governance of this revenue collected and probably better clarity in how the money will be spent.
Very well. I think the Honorable former minister, Assistant Minister has just talked about advising or advisory to the government. Number one, I call upon the government, from His Excellency the President, to listen to the people of Kenya. And I wish to put a point across that probably would be of help or value to the process. Number one, you cannot build Rome in a day. If you build Rome in a day, high possibility that the structure will collapse.
Yeah.
In this regard, why implement all these taxes in a day or in a season? That's why we have more pain. Why don't you spread it over time? You have 5 years, William, or Your Excellency, and your team and your the parliamentary committee on this finance. You have a whole 5 years. Instead of inflicting these one-night pain on Kenyans, spread it over time. Where are your economists to be able to advise you on this, the implementation process of this bill? And that is why in strategic plan, we have immediate, intermediate, and long-term interventions. Why don't we sit down as a government and agree that on this taxation, we're gonna implement it right away. Going forward, we have this set that would go at the intermediate level. And then probably we have the long-term implementation or the long-term interventions that probably he can spread it up to 2026. He has the whole 5 years to do that.
Actually, let's be fair to them, because this is this proposal is contained in a draft medium-term debt strategy for the period 2024-2025, 2026-2027, meaning it will still require to go through the parliamentary budget-making process probably for next year. But is this too much for a two financial year period?
That's what I'm talking about. This is too much. And that's why this shoe now is now trying to, speak out, because it's too much. Because again, when you are pressed too hard within the same time, you collapse, you have no breathing space. Right now, Kenyans have no breathing space. Please, Your Excellency, Kenyans are going through pain. Expand this within a good time frame that will give Kenya some breathing space. Remember, these are the same parents who are paying school fees. These are the same parents who we are talking about increasing taxes within the same time frame from 16 to 18%. These are the same time Kenyans already executed the housing levy, is already a pain to them. Come on, how much can you do within a given time frame like 1 year? It has been too much.
Yes.
And I must say this, if the government is to listen, we have failed on the implementation of the proposals by not scheduling within the given time frame. So economists that are advising the president, can they please spread it? And something else, we cannot do everything actually, even within the 5 years. We must run this, that there is an incoming 6th government. Tafadhali tuachie ingine, serikali ya sita. Because if we do everything right now, that's why Kenyans will be like this. And then, what will be the need of the government if Kenyans choose?
And the World Bank, the World Bank appears to be sharing sentiments by the ambassador Storinga that it is too much too soon. That too much taxation could have a negative effect on the economy by slowing down the economy. How true is that?
To some extent, it may be true. But again, you see, we are talking about a period. I have not read the medium term, whatever that was given to us. But even if it is within 2 years, I think the fact that the net is being casted wide means that the government could even overshoot its expectations in terms of what is going to net. You get the point? And that should give a signal that now perhaps you may need to go down because now you got enough of what you want. I think the government is in a interesting position, and I don't speak for the government, but I find it in a very interesting situation. You go, you campaign, and the people want everything. They'll tell you, you know, you're a politician like me.
Yes.
You go to the ground and the people say, no, we need this road, we need this water, we need this, we need more bursaries for school children, all those kind of things. So in Kenya, it looks like government is the mother and the father of everything. Yeah, people don't want to work anymore. So maybe that's why the government is now telling them, perhaps you also need to feel the pain, so that even as you expect the government to deliver more, then you know why that government is being put in place. But I need to say this. The government should tell us how much tax it is expecting to receive once these proposals are.
The figure banded out is 650 billion.
Correct.
That's the additional amount the Treasury is seeking to net annually.
Annually, about 650 billion. If we go back to the government which was led by His Excellency Uhuru, I remember he talked about pilferage. And there was this time he was giving up and saying, oh, we are losing 2 billion shillings every day through corruption. Quick mathematics tells you that that's about 700 billion. So perhaps this money is there. Perhaps, I'm just thinking. Perhaps it is there because the previous government confirmed that that was the amount that they were losing every day through corruption. I don't know whether this government has done some research to find out how much you're losing through corruption. And what has it done to ensure that that pilferage does not continue. Okay. Because maybe we are looking for the money that we already have. So all we need to do is to improve on governance. I heard you mention governance and the fight against corruption. So we equally, we need to see even bigger pain that the government is taking to fight corruption.
Interestingly, that's the one conversation that is least enjoyed in this country. And remember our question this morning, is the government justified in its latest proposal to introduce more taxes? You can continue interacting with us on social media, on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. We will continue discussing 1 year on Kenya Kwanza, the hits and misses, including the introduction of more taxes. After the break, you're watching Morning Cafe. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Indemuli. We are still in studio with the Ambassador Esther Waringa, Honorable Magere Langat, and we'll be introducing Jogora Mwangi to this panel shortly. But just before we get back to business, let's take a look at our top story. Treasury is calling on Kenyans to submit their recommendations on a fresh proposal to increase a value-added tax, that's VAT, on products and services to 18% from the current 16%. The proposal is contained in a draft medium-term debt strategy for the periods 2024-2025 and 2026-2027. In the plan, Treasury argues that Kenya's VAT percentage of 16% is much lower in comparison to neighboring countries in the East African community. Other taxation areas targeted for increase include excise duty on spirits and other products with higher alcohol content to discourage consumption. Users of tobacco products will not be spared either, as the state seeks to harmonize the excise duty for the current categories of filtered cigarettes, non-filtered, and other tobacco products. Sugar-based non-alcoholic beverages taxes will also be reviewed under the proposed tax regime as part of the government's mission to prevent obesity and diet-related non-communicable diseases. Now, the new tax measures will include different areas and mention of the additional taxes targeting farmers, landlords, car owners, small traders, and even schools with swimming pools. This morning we ask, is the government justified in its latest proposal to introduce more taxes? You can continue interacting with us on social media at TV47 News on X and at TV47 Kenya on Facebook. Allow me now to introduce Njuguna Mwangi. Njuguna Mwangi is a governance expert. Njuguna, just before you came in, we had this discussion about the more pain. And there's the argument about pain now, relief later, or it could just be, as promised by the Kenya Kwanza administration, as a campaign that we will increase the tax base. People like farmers, border riders, and some schools have not been paying taxes. The fact that this proposal is coming at this time and the description is pain, is this an accurate description now, or are we missing the point? Probably we're just looking at it as from the point of view of those informal employment, that probably this could just be the way to widen the tax base.
Thank you. First of all, allow me to take this opportunity still to apologize for joining you late due to unexpected traffic somewhere along the way. I think this is an interesting discussion, bearing in mind that this government, the government of the day, is a government that really promised Kenyans during campaigns that their main intention and the reason why they were looking for this opportunity to serve Kenyans was to ensure that they make the lives of Kenyans bearable. I believe, and as you have just put it, you have even the dailies are talking of the pains, and even here on this forum, we are still discussing about the pains to Kenyans. We need to remember the saying that we always say, that no pain, no gain. First of all, we must be in agreement that the situation we are in as Kenyans is not really very, very pleasing. The economy, the status of our economy is still struggling because of the huge debts that we have. We have very huge demands of that Kenyans have a lot of hope in this government. We still expect services to be delivered. We still expect to see economy improving, and therefore at this particular moment I think the hardest situation you can be is to be leading this government because you are really wondering how to balance all these issues. Here is a country that has huge debts we are struggling with. Here are Kenyans who have great hope on you. They really want to see their lives improving in the next few years. Here is a situation where we don't want to increase, to overburden ourselves with more debts. then we ask ourselves, now that we are in this hole, how do we come out? And then it simply means that we must have a leadership that is not only a leadership that is a populist leadership. We need a leadership that is ready to tell us the truth as it is. And for your information, from the interaction I've had with the many people in our country from different quarters, I can say without any doubt that Kenyans have no problem with giving taxes to the government. The only challenge we have is the trust deficit. Because Kenyans would not mind paying more taxes as long as they are assured that this revenue that the government is collecting is not going to benefit individuals in form of corruption, in form of wastages. In fact, Kenyans are very patriotic. And I'm one of the Kenyans who really believe in giving what belongs to Caesar. We have to, I think it's on the side of the government now to start ensuring that Kenyans increase or have more trust in them.
Okay.
Right now, friend, maybe if you allow me, I would say the government that we have, the Kenya Kwanza government, seem to be working very hard to redeem the image of government as far as the citizens are concerned. And I believe the action by the president recently, where he tried to indicate a situation where he is very ready to fight corruption, seems to be a step towards redeeming the trust.
And we'll come back to that discussion about corruption because it is one hot potato that no one wants to touch. But I'll borrow from some of the words that Njuguna uses, populism and truth. The fact that for the Kenya Kwanza administration to get elected, they made a lot of promises.
Yep.
And yes, it bordered on populism, that you make too many promises that you may eventually find difficult to fulfill. He's saying that they need, that this government is truthful right now, that it's telling Kenyans, yes, there's pain. Yet it's the same people who campaigned and probably overpromised. Don't you think that that is what they're suffering from right now? That you overpromised 1 year on, you've not delivered so much, but you're causing more pain.
Yeah, probably we need to adopt Chapter 6 of the Constitution of Kenya, both for presidential candidates and for presidents in power. Because when you talk of integrity matters, integrity does not allow you to speak what you may not deliver. So it calls for us, like presidential aspirants, when you are doing your manifesto, please ensure that you are giving promises to Kenyans that are realistic, objective, within a given time frame. So I think it's cause for a review of the way we coin our manifestos. Don't be over like promising things that are not happening. Promising heaven. I think everybody expected that 1 year of Kenya Kwanza government in power, we'll be reigning somewhere close to heaven. But unfortunately, I think we are reigning somewhere close to, so you can see what the situation is like. Yeah, so what does that tell you? Integrity is lacking in terms of the way we deliver governance issues. This comes back now to what you had talked before about challenges in the way we manage the public service, the way we manage governance issues in terms of 1, integrity, number 2, accountability, number 3, responsibility. Because when you visualize an accountable government, you will not release any statement from your mouth that you know it will have a ripple, especially a negative impact to the people of Kenya. You know one. People of Kenya also have come to believe politicians so much, especially during campaigns. They believe these people to a point of almost worshipping them. I'm saying that knowing that I'm a presidential candidate 2027. But I think I want to be very moderate. I just don't want to promise things You know, they usually say what? We will bring Indian Ocean from the coast province to the central province. And Kenyans believe, Indian Ocean will come. Come on.
If you fail to give such promises, will you really get elected?
This is why we are calling for accountability and responsibility in systems of governance. Yeah, why don't we do it moderately with no much, noise? Because I think this is what we call noise. Because when you make a statement that that is not realistic, that is not objective, that is not within a scheduled time frame, then that is noise, because we must be good planners. You cannot tell us that you are a presidential material if you don't know how to manage your government developmental interventions. I must say this, that the current situation Kenya is in, President Kibaki during his first term found the country in the same situation. But was there any pain? Another question. Will this pain lead to gain? Right? So, can we borrow a little bit from the economist that was surrounding His Excellency President Mwai Kibaki? Because remember, he increased taxation. He delivered very comfortably. There was no pain. Why? Because of proper planning.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if we could borrow from, yes, now that you mentioned President Mwai Kibaki, he made some powerful promises before he became president. One of them on delivering the free primary education.
Sure.
And within 7 days, give it to him, he had done that. He was he took oath of office, I think, right at the beginning of the year, and within the first term of that year, there was no school charging school fees to primary school education to primary school children. Now, when we talk about the trust deficit, isn't this emanating from failure to deliver on some of the promises which President William Ruto himself gave timelines to? Like, for example, we said within 30 days, I'll have set up a commission to investigate, to probe, a quasi-judicial commission to investigate state capture within 30 days. It did not happen. He had said he'll tackle issues of cost of living within 6 months. It is still yet to go down. Fuel prices was meant to go down within a number of months. It did not. He promised to handle the 2/3 gender rule issue within 12 months. 12 months ended yesterday. He even promised to reserve 50 slots in his cabinet to women. Something
50%.
that 50% that he was not even required to, but he made that promise and he gave it a timeline. 12 months. 12 months ended yesterday. That was within his purview. Failure to deliver on some of these promises that he made and gave timelines to. Isn't that, in effect, also contributing to this trust deficit that people now are seeing, that even if you collect more money from us, we are still not sure you'll deliver on that promise?
Fred, it's interesting, but let me start by saying, personally, I'm a member of Kenya Kwanza. And number two, I also served in Kibaki's cabinet as an assistant minister. And if you compare the two regimes, for example, when Kibaki came in 2002, I had just finished the campus myself. Yeah, there was completely a different situation. Why Kibaki succeeded, for example, in delivering the free primary education within the first 1 month of his government was basically because we had so many children who were not in school. So the population at that time, which was going to school, was small. Yeah, but you realize that when he now opened that space, if you go through the records, the school-going children, about 1 million who were not previously going to school now came on board, and it even spilled over to old learners who had dropped out of school and they were invited back to school and all those things. So I can say the situation he was in was new. So when he made that promise and he pushed it, there was space. You get the point? So if you look at the population now that we have in schools, it's in the millions. I think almost about 1.5 million kids, join schooling every year from kindergarten moving forward. So the population also has really increased. It's not the same numbers that we are talking about, that the numbers Kibaki had. But overall, Kibaki, being an economist, and was a very thorough person in terms of, telling the truth. And he told people, you must pay taxes. I remember he kept saying it until, people, whenever he talked about taxes, people would laugh. Same case, even right now, President Ruto has talked about taxes until he has earned himself a name. That name is
my question is actually based on the fact that when you make promises and fail to deliver,
I was coming there.
Yes.
So you see, when you are making those promises in terms of, the campaign, it is actually, if you want, Frederick, when you are campaigning as a politician, you are basically doing also a needs assessment, because you are going into the people, and the people will tell you this is what we want. You get the point? So as you build up your campaigns, and Balozi will tell you, you know how you start the campaign is not how you progress it, and it's not even how you end it, because now you'll have collected more views and more requirements, what the expectations of the people, that by the time you're sitting down to do your manifesto, the final manifesto, it will have expanded tenfold. And basically that is where President Ruto found himself in, because previously, remember, he was a cabinet minister. I served with him in the same cabinet. He was a minister for agriculture. And I want to laud him anyway, because he has expanded the agricultural sector in terms of provisions of subsidies in fertilizer and seed. I hear people talking about fertilizer, but the seed, I'm an agronomist. Yeah? The seed that we have been planting previously was also not a very good quality seed. So I can say that in terms of, if you go to and talking to the farmers now, in the areas we come from, the Rift and other areas that are planting maize, they'll tell you this quality of fertilizer and this maize, this time around, was good. So that again contributes to building the level of trust. We are talking about now, how do you build the level of trust? Number two, the issue of, fighting corruption must be devoid of political witch hunt. And that's why sometimes you see, the courts we have are sending, they are dismissing some of those cases, which at first we thought they were big cases, and all of us thought that, kumbe, these people have stolen so many millions. But I think the courts have proven that a bit of some of these cases were laced with malice, and therefore we need to rebuild the trust in the judicial system, and the judiciary and also the prosecution must be able to get sufficient evidence to be able to prosecute a case, and we want to see people going to jail. We want to see people losing property. As it is now, towards the end of the last regime, there was nothing. It was just if you are good enough, if you are proposing a challenge in politics, then a few things will happen. The first one, of course, you don't pay KRA and all those kind of things. And I think that is what the CS for Finance is trying to look at. When he brings in these proposals, he's trying to expand the net to ensure that no one comes for you, Madam Balozi, later and say, oh, you had a house somewhere and you are not paying tax. Now, you are informed that if you have this house and you are getting some income out of it, you got to pay some taxes. Okay. In fact, just a few days I was talking to KRA officers, and I was asking them, I'm schooled personally, but I need to know what are the tax regimes so far that are there, because we keep talking about that integrity in the Chapter 6 and even the Article 10 and all those things. You talk about them. But sometimes you don't know that this is what the country requires of you. Okay. Yeah. So if you get someone who is cheeky, you will just go to some of those articles and say, can you bring in the file of so and so, because you are not aware, and then you will find that kumbe you have not been paying one, two, three things, and it will be different. So, so what I want to say, while I know this is going to be a little more painful, the pain, as my friend here has said, Kenyans have no problem with they have not so much problem in making payment of those taxation. But what annoys people is when you send even the little money you're sending to the counties, and it is stolen left, right, and center, and nothing happens. And
the question, therefore, Njuguna, is in the 1 year that William Ruto has been in office, and his discussion about corruption, tackling corruption, that has not really been a big talking point with this administration. In your own assessment, has this government done enough to build trust, so that when it comes down to asking for more money from Kenyans, they would not have these questions that we are asking, that we trust this government and we trust that whatever money they collect from us, they will spend it the right way? Have they done enough to actually build that trust?
Even as we try to rate the performance of this government, it's also important to be fair enough, because 1 year from the time President William Ruto took over at the leadership of the country, we may not be in a position really to, we may not be very fair enough to judge him based on just this 1 year.
You're saying 1 year is too short to rate the performance of a president?
I'm not saying it's too short, but I'm trying to say is, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes we are comparing the president with the past regimes which have served for maybe like 10 years, like 2 terms. And we assume that the president is supposed to have delivered every promise that he made during campaigns within this year. It's good to understand, you know, there is a saying that says, I think an English saying that says that if you're given, a wise man, if you're given 5 hours to cut down the trees, you spend 4 hours sharpening the axe, and then when it comes now to the exercise of felling down the trees, it will be very easy. And I think this is exactly what is happening from in my opinion, that the president and the Kenya Kwanza government, they are really setting a very good base and foundation for them to deliver the promises that they gave to Kenyans. And it's also good, friend, let us not just think of what they have not delivered. Let's agree that there are some areas that they have really delivered. The government of Kenya today, in fact, for the first time since devolution took off, we have seen the national government releasing all the funds that are supposed to go to the counties for the first time in history. And today, I'm even wondering why governors are not holding press conferences to thank the government, the national government, for what they have, the national government has done. For the first time, we cannot hear any noise from the counties because they have the money. No government, there is no single county government that can complain that the reason why they are not able to deliver is because they do not have the funds from the national government. And what does that mean? If you look at it now from the perspective of even the corruption, that is also another way of dealing with the corruption at the county levels. Because if a county, for example, a county like my own county, Murang'a County, is, let's say it's supposed to receive maybe 10 billions, and the national government has only released maybe 3 billions. What will happen eventually is, if you're given a contract to do a certain project, and you know very clearly that there is no enough funds to pay you, that is where corruption comes in, because people will go there to try and bribe so that they be in the priority of being paid. So today, with the funds being released to the counties, we expect a lot of activities to go on, and we will be able to mitigate the corruption. Okay. If you look at other areas, as Mheshimiwa has just put it on the issue of subsidizing the production in terms of fertilizers, you know, the government is not only addressing the issue of the cost of production. The government is also very keen on the maximizing on the potential of the land, because if we give, if the government is able to subsidize the fertilizers, and it's also giving seeds that are well certified, that will actually do well in certain areas, we'll be able to see production rising.
Okay.
If today I was, if you consider what has been happening in our country, the potential of land in producing maize, we are supposed to be producing about 6 tons per hectare. But now, because of the challenge of the seeds maybe we are having, the challenge of cost of production, we have been as low as less than 2 tons per hectare.
Okay.
So today, I'm seeing like the government is really, Kenyans are really building, trusting this government than many other governments. But of course, you'll agree with me that Kenyans are still not very sure of what the government will really do, because we are used to having governments that promise and they don't deliver. But what we are seeing is this government is really working very hard to ensure that they deliver what they promised.
Okay.
Sorry,
on delivering, and I'll come back to you, Njuguna. But
allow me to add this.
Allow me to engage her, then I'll come back to you. Let's be fair to the Kenya Kwanza administration.
Yeah.
The manifesto was based on 6 core pillars: agriculture, MSME economy, housing and settlement, healthcare, digital superhighway and creative economy, and lastly, environment and climate change. What Njuguna argues is that on those 6 pillars, at least the government has delivered, or has had some movement towards delivery. And therefore, if it is on sticking to the script, then we could give them some marks. Do you agree?
Very well. In every undertaking, and especially this one, that we are trying to get like 1 year of the Kenya Kwanza administration into leadership, we would like to ask ourselves as Kenyans, what is the percentage of delivery? Because for us to measure success, there has to be a good percentage of delivery. Are we giving them 30, 40, 50, or what is the percentage of delivery? And what are the key success indicators that are telling us that within the 1 year of President Ruto's administration, he has delivered on the 6? If we go to agriculture, is fertilizer donation or whatever, what do you call it?
Subsidized.
Yes, the subsidized fertilizer program. At what percentage has it benefited, or has it worked towards implementation of the agricultural promises that the president promised? When you go to the housing levy, and you know, when we are calculating in terms of like success indicators, also, like when we are talking about the housing projects, being one of the 6 items, what is the percentage of delivery? And on this other side, you know, there are some negative impacts that may not add up or may reduce the percentage of delivery, because sometimes success indicators is highly dependent on results, on the results that are benefiting wananchi wa Jamhuri ya Kenya. For example, when we talk of implementation of the housing agenda, this housing levy, has it impacted positively or negatively? Yes, the Kenya Kwanza administration promised Kenyans that we are going to do this in housing, this in agriculture, this in education, but what is the percentage of positive impact to the people of Kenya? Because they could deliver, but negative impact to the lives of Wanjiku. Okay. So let us ask ourselves this question. If we give fertilizer, is it a positive impact, or is it just about realizing the Kenya Kwanza promises? Or does it have a positive impact? Because according to me, I must say, some of these interventions, they mean well. And actually, Kenya Kwanza administration is a great planner government. I mean, they plan very well. But what is the implementation strategy? And are they focusing on resort-based planning, where these resorts are going to impact positively on the life of Kenyans? Or is just about, mpende msipende, we are bringing the housing levy? Or is it the will of the people of Kenya to have the, because at some point, it's good to be humble and listen to the people you are serving. I must say, confidently, that if His Excellency the President was listening to the voice of Kenyans, we could have scrapped the housing levy from the finance bill. Because I'm not sure that's going to give us the expected development or the expected benefit to the people of Kenya. How much, what is the percentage of benefit of the housing project to the people of Kenya?
Okay.
Probably fertilizer could have and have had a positive impact. That one is a plus, and I agree. If we take that trend, I think we are going to have it done. But also I ask, why should farmers be registered, come on, to be given fertilizer? My friend, this should be donated, I mean, should be given because already it's at 2,500. Why should they be registered?
Even as you answer that, it appears that the entire Kenya Kwanza plan is premised on delayed relief, that there is not going to be any instantaneous relief. Even on the issue of unga, that they had initially thought they would bring the cost down within 60 days. They abandoned that. Now they say everything will take time. Is that accurate?
It will take it's accurate, because even if you have a pain in your head right now and you took a painkiller, does it act instantly?
Some of the painkillers are actually instant. Yeah.
And those are isolated cases though. But basically, it will take a little time, and then you begin to feel the relief. That's true. So just to answer the issue of the registration of farmers.
Yes, what's
and
happened?
I've told you I'm speaking as an agronomist and as a farmer. You see, previously, governments have tried to subsidize fertilizer and all these things. But you see, there are people, I don't want to mention or call them cartels, but there are a group of people who see a business opportunity in every opportunity. So you will find that without that registration, if you have money, for example, if I have money, I go and buy 1,000 bags of fertilizer.
But I thought voters are voters. We should
No.
equally.
Listen to me. Listen to me. Listen to me.
Okay,
Listen to me. There is no restriction previously on how much of that fertilizer you can take, or the seed. You get the point. Remember, the government has subsidized, so the government has put an input in those fertilizer. Now, the only way to slow down that was to ensure that the fertilizer, the person buying the fertilizer, is a farmer who's going to use that fertilizer. And I can tell you, I registered. My acreage is not so much. I was only allocated 30 bags. I actually used 22. You get the point? So there are people who are buying. In fact, a number of them were telling me, why don't you go and take, then you sell it to us? And that's what has been happening. I mean, you have had fertilizers being found in go-downs. You have had also maize, which is intended to be donated to relieve some situations in Kenya, being found in some go-downs. Now, coming back to the issue of unga, you see, initially the previous regime was rewarding the millers. And you know, a miller is a business person. And I don't think there was a clear way of determining how much of the maize that this particular miller has released into the market. So these guys would just come with invoices that we have released so many tons in the market, and government pays them back whatever the percentages that they are supposed to pay. And I thought that was not adding up. So when this administration came in, they actually did an assessment of all those things. The subsidies to maize, the subsidies to fuel, And you remember the issue of fuel, just a few people were getting subsidies. And that one was not, and you see, it was being paid upfront, even before the other fertilizers, the real oil prices were paid. So there were people who were benefiting from these kind of things. And those are the characters that we are talking about. There are people who are eating more money from government than what the government can be able to do. So I think when this government came in and they realized that if you mill the maize, and this is what you are making, then it was not possible to continue to sustain those subsidies that they were being given to specific millers. And I think now it thought of different things. And that's why we came into production as a long-term strategy. So that if we, like now, we are going to have a bumper harvest. I mean, and we thank God for the rains and all those things, and also the government for the plan that they had. Automatically, like in Kericho now, where I come from, 2 kg gorogoro, we call it gorogoro. 2 kg now is retailing at about 90, which is not very interesting to the farmer. But you see, that one is now availing the food to the consumer at a very affordable price. Because if you talk about 2.5 kg, gorogoro is about 2 to 2.5 kg when it is milled. You get the point? And it is less than 100 shillings. I had yesterday Waziri Kuria talking about that, and it was difficult for him to prove, because now ile mahindi inasiagwa huko nyumbani is not the same that you get in the processed maize. So there are gains that are already showing up. Okay. But now what we need to do is that long-term plan. What is government going to do so that we don't get back into the same situation? And that is why now maybe they have identified agriculture as a front line to ensure that people have enough food. People are talking about food. Even when you saw all these riots, people are saying, mimi tu nataka chakula, I want unga, I want all that. So if food is provided, then the country is quiet.
Okay.
Yeah?
On the issue of cartels, Juguna, you mentioned cartels, and you've also mentioned the issue of cartels. If at all cartels are not tackled, then all these promises and all these well-meaning plans will come to naught.
Sure.
But then again, standing on the top of the roof of a car and saying mambo ni matatu could indicate some extrajudicial approach to tackling cartels. Do you believe that that's the best way to handle this cartel, the issue of cartels and pilferage by extension?
Friend, we keep on talking of cartels as if it's a particular animal somewhere that we need to go and look and slaughter and capture. But I think we, first of all, have to agree as Kenyans that these are some of the impunities that we must handle. Let us not baptize thieves and try to brand them good names like, cartel looks very nice, a very nice name. These are thieves who are actually destroying our economy, and we must be very keen on them. And what the president is doing, the only thing that we need to see is him matching what he says with action, because
with the kind of action he indicated from while speaking in Western Kenya?
Hoping you are not trying to be an advocate of the cartels, because we exercise to do extrajudicial killing. That's not allowed. It's not possible in the current nation, in the current dispensation, because we have the rule of law, and the president can only do. You cannot go and act as a judge. One thing we need to do is to strengthen our institutions. For example, now the judiciary I feel like now the judiciary is getting some more empowerment, because the president seems very keen to have an independent judiciary. We have seen him even increasing the budgetary allocation to the judiciary. Other institutions like EACC must be detached from politics. They have to do professional job that they have been given by Kenyans. DCI, they have to take their role seriously, because now there is an independent, they have been given that mandate by the Constitution. So what we need to see is action being taken by all institutions that are supposed to take action. We have seen what the president has done, because we are discussing the Kenya Kwanza government. It is not, it's actually a very new thing to see a new government taking, that is just trying to take shape, and you see the president clacking on even senior officials like PS. We saw that during the KEMSA scandal. We have seen the president, instead of coming to the media, tell us how he's going to fight corruption and maybe questioning what we expect him to do, we have seen him take action. He doesn't talk much, because after all, he was branded a very corrupt person. And what we are seeing now is a different kind of a person from what we used to be told.
Are you saying he's having a challenge communicating about corruption because of the kind of criticism?
All I'm saying is he's doing more action than talking.
That action is what I'm asking.
Sorry. Let me explain something here. We have to give credit where it's due, because if the president doesn't speak tough on these people, in fact, you saw what he did with the issue of the sugar. And we have seen people coming out and it's like they are confessing that even the cases they had in courts really had no substance. They were just doing that to protect their own interests. So if the president is keen on these people, we expect to see even other junior leaders in his government take that route.
Okay.
So I wanted to comment on the rooftop thing, just to support what you are saying.
Yes, go ahead.
You see, when we were growing up, our mothers used to tell us, and she's a mother, ukifanya hii kitu wewe, utaniona leo. Hata anashika hata mwiko kubwa. Then when you see that mwiko and you see you hear the voice, will you do the mistake? So the president was basically sounding a warning by saying that if you do this thing, utahama. And if you don't hammer, then tutakufunga. You see, And of course, you know, in a joking whatever, he said you can go to heaven. How can thieves go to heaven?
Without dying, I think was
how can thieves go to heaven even? Thieves cannot go to heaven. But the president is a Christian. He couldn't say you will go to hell because that's not within his jurisdiction to decide who is going to heaven and who is going to hell. So I think we shouldn't really take that situation out of context to mean that he's planning some extrajudicial. That is what is in the minds of Kenyans. But basically, as a father, he was saying, if you do this, unaona hii kiboko.
It may have generated quite some interest among Kenyans, the fact that probably this time around we are seeing at least someone talking tough. But we've had instances where presidents talk tough on corruption without tangible actions. Have you seen or witnessed in the first year of President William Ruto's administration any tangible action towards fighting corruption?
Very well. Number one, I would like to say that His Excellency the President, during the devolution conference, made a very tough statement on matters fighting corruption. But a few days after that, mambo ni matatu. Not forgetting that he had already tasked the judicial system and the systems of justice to take effect on matters corruption. You know, as a head of state and as a father, you must be able to know what gets out of your mouth can impact positively or negatively to the people of Kenya. And actually, you should be able to know also as a father, the family that you are reading, what kind of statement should you make to them? Like, for example, saying mambo ni matatu, and here again, we have the judiciary, we have Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. As a head of state, you shouldn't you should allow institutions that have been tasked with the corruption issues take their responsibility. But unfortunately, as he says, we have so much politicized institutions of justice. For example, during the first few months of the president's reign in leadership, did we see a few people who have stolen, actually, in government? And we saw the DPP saying there is no case, and today these people are cabinet ministers. So what are we saying? Did we see recently His Excellency the President say, do I have cabinet ministers? Nataka barua kutoka kwenu. So what are we saying in terms of integrity of the people who are serving in government, who should be role models? What is the president doing in terms of cracking a whip and showing us the people of Kenya that, look, I had a cabinet minister appointed, but again, the DPP or the justice systems talks about this particular cabinet minister having been involved in corruption. And I, as the president, have sent the same cabinet minister home. I think the day we see that, we shall be comfortable that the president is fighting corruption. But as long as we see a few of his cabinet ministers are people who have stolen, that is why, until now, the unga is so high, yet the Kenyans have been squeezed to give taxes, but 100 days, first year of His Excellency's reign, we are not seeing the positive impact of the taxes we are paying. How much is unga today? Yet we are so much being squeezed. How much is rice? How much is cooking oil? Sugar. Actually, I have already prompted a bill at the Senate, which is at the committee stage. It's called Affordable Kitchen Bill for all women that is trying to seek, I hope, the president to sign it into law, including the Senate, now that the majority is on the government side, because the bill is proposing zero rating. These 5 major kitchen items, that is the unga, the rice, the cooking oil, the flour, and the gas. I know they have worked on the cylinders and everything else. But if the bill goes through, then we are going to see a big step that the government will have taken effect towards addressing the cost of living. This we did during the demonstrations. When the demonstrations were high and there was no answer, I decided, let me quickly take this bill to the Senate so that quickly, if the items are zero rated, then we can be able to see a step towards fighting corruption. So, answering you, have we seen tangible results during 1 year of the president on fighting corruption? We are yet to see. We are yet to see. Okay. We are yet to see. Fred, even if he has acted on Kwanza, even if he has acted, yes, please, we are yet to see the black and white. Do you know what we call the black and white? Other than what we are seeing the KEMSA, the what. We are yet to see in black and white the president. If he is to fight corruption, let him execute or implement what he talked during the devolution conference.
Okay. Allow me to support her sentiments, of course, Patrick.
And because of time, briefly.
Yeah, you see, we are talking of, she has just mentioned about seeing the president taking action on senior officers, government officers. And you see, we all know, and we have been in this country for long, that we have had leaders in the past regime being branded corrupt with fake cases, and you have seen it, the DPP, the DCI, all of them confessing that in fact all these charges had no evidence. You cannot tell us that if I come and brand our sister here a thief, then she should be jailed immediately just because I have just said so. We are saying, we are contradicting ourselves here. We are, on one hand, we are saying we need to see the rule of law being followed. On the other, we want the president to take action based on hearsays and such. Okay. What we are saying, we need to have...
I'll ask you, as you do that, you make your final comments because you're running out of time.
All right. So what I'm saying, I can say the government is really trying to show Kenyans that in fact, they can learn an efficient government. We have seen the president trying to seal all the holes that we have been having money, the revenue of the government being stolen. We have seen him come up with a single pay bill for all government services, which I think so far it has shown a very good result. We have seen the president ensuring that all those taxes that we are being charged, that we are paying to the government, are going to the rightful use. Like now we have the Petroleum Development Levy, which was introduced so many years ago. In the year 2020, it was revealed upwards from 40 cents per litre to 5 Kenya shillings 5.40 per litre. But then, when you look at the funds, the intention of this levy was supposed to stabilize the prices of fuel. But again, during the last regime, in the last few years of that regime, they spent this money in the wrong, they put that money in the wrong use. What we have seen, the president is bringing back the sanity in this. Okay. We have seen this money being utilized in the right way by stabilizing the fuel prices. Sure. Okay. So we have to agree that some of these actions that the government is taking, let us appreciate where it's doing well. Like now, now we have seen the president very categorical on the issue of subsidies, that we cannot subsidize, we cannot subsidize consumption for reasons Mheshimiwa has just mentioned here. And we do not expect to see results of the subsidized production through fertilizers and such in 1 month. Okay. This is exactly what we are just about to experience in the next few months. And we'll be able now to see the fruits of the actions that the government is taking.
Okay, thank you. About a minute and a half.
Yeah, I will start by saying that we believe in the rule of law, and the role of executive is to ensure that the rule of law is, is followed. We have got institutions that are tasked to deal with corruption, EACC, DPP, and the likes. I think the challenge should be, are these institutions functional? And we do not want to hear the rumors that they are orders from above, because Constitution clearly empowers them to do their things. They are independent. But I wanted to say, I have some insight a little bit on the DPP, and I can tell you that DPP has got inadequate officers in terms of who can be able to prosecute. So what the government should do now is to resource the DPP to be able to do that. And under DPP, there is a very important thing called investigations. Because for you to be able to prosecute a case, then you must have done investigations to clearly, get the facts right. So DPP does not have an investigation arm.
But we have the DCI.
that is now another department. You see, and that's what I'm saying. So DPP will have to wait for DCI or police to be able to prosecute a case, and that's under different management. So I am just thinking that we need to relook at the operation of DPP. Should it have its own investigative arm, so that the cases which you are saying they are being brought and found that they have no substance is because the evidence that is being given to the DPP by now that other institution says so. There is no evidence, this guy is okay, and there is nothing we can do. So we cannot rely on rumors. And Madam Mheshimiwa Balozi, you are a very senior person in this country, and I've heard you say you want us to stick to the rule of law.
Absolutely.
At the same time, you want to say that we know people who are thieves, you know, and the courts are saying we have looked at the evidence that has been tabled and we find no substance. So you see, you are also overreaching the judicial system. Let us learn to trust the judiciary. Okay. And the judiciary will deliver only if the clear evidence and presentation of facts are put. So in other words, I'm saying, Kenya Kwanza, in the first year, they have delivered, quite to the expectation of many of us, because we started from very bottom below, but now you can see the country is almost at a competitive stage. Let's
allow her to have her minute before we wrap up.
Thank you. My parting shot, that the Kenya Kwanza government going forward in terms of implementation of their manifesto, they must be smart. What we mean by smart, they must be very specific, measurable and objective, and they must, whatever interventions that they are undertaking, must be within achievable time frame. This happens also to the all leaders and the DCI, the DPP, and every other agency of government, and all those who are preparing to be presidential candidates, that we must have smart manifestos, meaning they have to be specific, measurable interventions, achievable, realistic, and within a given time frame for us to deliver effectively without making a lot of noise. So I want to say that going forward, if we are all smart, and being a strategist by profession, I always advocate for objectivity. I always advocate for timely interventions within a given timelines. And if we have to move forward in terms of making sure that we implement, like forever, whatever the taxation law provide for, it must be within a given time frame, achievable, very realistic, not oppressing Kenyans or impacting or giving us more pain. I think we have had enough pain. Meanwhile, you have your 6th presidency, Ambassador Esther Waringa, running for the 2027. So Ruto, amalize haraka, afanye kazi mzuri, I'll give him a position in government. Asante.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Esther Waringa, presidential candidate. She already describes herself as the 6th president of the Republic. Thank you so much, Ambassador. The Honorable Magere Lagat, political analyst and a former cabinet minister, and governance expert Njuguna Mwangi, our panelists this morning, as we continue gauging the hits and misses of the Kenya Kwanza administration 1 year after the president took oath of office. Thank you so much for your very well considered opinions. And for now, let me go to our editorial commentary this morning. Now, the trend of politicians dismissing and trashing public opinion surveys when they do not favor them is not unique to Kenya. It is a global phenomenon that poses significant challenges to the integrity of democratic processes. Yet, this is 2023. And while skepticism and criticism of polls are not inherently problematic, when politicians selectively dispute the credibility of polls, it erodes trust in the system and can have detrimental effects on society. First and foremost, it's essential to recognize that surveys to gauge public opinion are conducted based on established scientific principles. Professional pollsters use statistically rigorous methods to collect data from a representative sample of the population. These methods are designed to minimize bias and provide an accurate reflection of public opinion at a particular point in time. Dismissing polls outright without credible evidence of bias or manipulation undermines the scientific foundation of these surveys. When politicians brand pollsters as guns for hire without concrete evidence, it perpetuates a dangerous narrative that delegitimizes one of the essential tools for gauging public sentiment. It implies that pollsters are intentionally skewing results to favor a particular agenda, which, if true, would indeed be a grave issue. If there are legitimate concerns about the impartiality and accuracy of pollsters, it is incumbent on responsible authorities, including government bodies or independent regulatory agencies, to investigate and address these concerns. Polling organizations themselves should also maintain strict ethical standards and transparent methodologies to bolster their credibility. Polls, when conducted according to scientific principles, serve as a vital tool for understanding public opinion. Accountability mechanisms should be in place to maintain their credibility and ensure their role in shaping public opinion or public discourse in policy making address genuine concerns about the integrity of polling practices. It is essential, but it should be evidence-based and indiscriminate. And that is a TV editorial commentary by TV47 this morning.
Asante, karibuni tena.
Nimeshukuru Loto sana kwa kuja kwetu kutuletea miti kwa sababu hapa mazingira ni ya maana kwetu.
When you plant a tree, it will dry out in dry conditions. So the seed balls are protected so that they're able to withstand the dry weather. So what we want to do is to make sure that in Baringo today we're doing 100,000 trees, and our aim is to make sure that regardless of what is happening, we know there's a lot of charcoal burning in the area. So we want to talk to them and tell them, as much as they are getting their livelihoods from the charcoal, they need to plant trees. One, for the environment. We've seen the Kerio Valley, we've seen the destruction that is going on for them cutting trees. So we're telling them, for every tree that you cut, if you need to cut, then at least plant 2.
Unasikiza, ukikata moja ongeza zingine 3, kwa sababu tunataka kushughulika kuhakikisha kwamba hamna mambo ya ukame tena. Panda miti. Kumbuka yote haya ni kwa hisani ya Lotto Foundation, na wewe ndio umefanikisha shughuli hii.
Do you want to advertise your business or product and you are on a budget? Then Marquee Africa is the site for you to advertise.